Neptune is really part of every experiment we launch.
This is essential. This is basically underpinning a lot of the decision-making of the company.
Bioptimus is a startup, a French startup, that trains foundation models for biology. What we're doing is we're creating foundation models, so these large, very expensive and difficult to train machine learning models, or AIs as some people call them. But we're training them on the language of biology. We're training them on protein sequences, we're training them on DNA, we're training them on images of biopsies, so that instead of learning the human language, we're essentially learning the language of life.
We want to target the whole downstream effects from molecules to cells to tissues and eventually to patients, so that we can better predict how certain interventions, like administering different drugs to different patients with their own particularities, may react to treatment, and how we can make better decisions.
We've released 2 models that were focused specifically on histopathology. That is really just a proof of concept. Because what we really want to do at Bioptimus is model all of biology holistically.
There is today no turnkey solution that can crack this problem. Typically, the approaches are fragmented out. Players in this landscape, in this ecosystem, focuses on a given modality of biology, let's say only proteomics or genomics or tissue. But we want to have this holistic view, and for this we need to develop a very custom model. That's the main reason why Bioptimus is doing in-house development.
So when you train foundation models, you need an experiment tracker. We run experiments that are extremely costly, that are time-consuming. There's a pre-training, there's a fine-tuning. You might want to have different schedules for how you alternate the data mixtures and so on and so forth. Which means that one model is not actually one model. It's a version of a model that went through various complicated pipelines, and sometimes you go back in time and you decide to take a previous model and so on and so forth. And Neptune allows us to capture this complicated chain of dependencies across models as well.
Typically, when you speak about foundation models, it means that the scale is also larger, and the inner working of the model is also more complex. Typically, you want to track specific statistics that happen at different layers of the models to be able to say whether the optimization works properly or not, whether some parameters, or you want to track a bug at a specific location of the model.
For me, it's just very hard to imagine doing this without a framework like Neptune. I mean, when we start the training run, we need to know what's going on, and of course we could use logs, but we're not cavemen, so...
The migration process from our previous experiment tracker to Neptune, I remember it very well because I'm actually the one who did it. The documentation from Neptune was really straightforward, and so for a change as major as changing our experiments tracker, actually migrating to Neptune was surprisingly easy.
The technical team of Neptune that helped us to migrate all the previous artifacts that we had to the new platform, listening to the features that were perhaps missing, that were needed for specific use case of the team. I would say it was the quality of the tool plus the help of and support of the technical team.
In terms of the performance of Neptune, I would say very positively surprised. It didn't show up in profiles, which means it would not take too much time to log anything. And that is I think, necessary for it to be used at large scale. The UI is very fast, actually. The figures or the plots work very well. Everything is super responsive and logged almost immediately in real time. Other frameworks have the problem that they are over-delivering on some of the features, and then you have a laggy UI or a slow UI, and even though you seemingly have not too many runs or things that you want to actually compare. And that's super annoying, right?
It's hard to say where Neptune fits into our workflow because it's hard to say where it doesn't. We run experiments where we pre-train models from the ground up. We're obviously tracking an absurd amount of metrics as we do this. But we also fine-tune our models. We also do benchmarking against competitors. Those are much smaller experiments, but we obviously need to really carefully track the ways in which hyperparameters can influence the results. So Neptune is really part of every experiment we launch.
We are running ablations pretty much constantly, and this can be both from the perspective of improving the performance of the model. We can keep track of all the experiments we're doing and clearly understand the patterns on the hyperparameters and guide us through and make the best use of our resources possible.
I try to use it for logging as many different things as possible so that I have a whole view, a holistic view of the training run, as well as any other potential script that runs for a longer time. I would have a look at sort of timings between steps, usage of hardware, of GPU, of disk, and so on. Sort of notice when you have a failure or when you have sort of bottlenecks that you maybe didn't anticipate before. Any type of throughput, I would say, as of course also losses and any kind of training metrics that you would sort of expect.
Having been at Google DeepMind, we were spoiled by absolutely amazing internal tools. Neptune is pretty much close to reaching parity to what we had internally. For us, pretty much an essential part of the experimentation workflow.
A lot of what we do in terms of decision making relies on experimentations. So if you cannot trust your experiment results, it means you cannot make decisions. So this is critical. And we rely on that on all the rendering and the API provided by Neptune to track the experiment, compare different model versions, assess the changes of new model features, to be able to share the results to different stakeholders of the company. And those stakeholders may have like different level of technical background. This is essential. This is basically underpinning a lot of the decision making of the company.
The Neptune team is extremely responsive, and it's allowed us to move really, really fast. Neptune is an excellent experiment tracker. It has a lot of features that are crucial to foundation model training. There are a lot of various very specific types of dependencies between experiments that you want to track that we can do with Neptune.
We know that when we visualize some results, this is true, this is associated to a given model, a given version, and this is not called into questions, which may have been the case in the past. And robustness as well. I would say we are more safety, a certain peace of mind when it comes to starting like a training job and making sure that all metrics will be logged in.
Speaking, from the perspective of AI, biology is a really exciting area to work in. Still very, very much room for experimentation.
My hope is that by creating these foundation models, we can achieve the same kind of transformation that we've seen AI make happen in day-to-day lives, but specifically for medical research. Can we compress the timelines that are necessary to develop drugs, to identify diseases, to identify treatments? Can we make those go from years to maybe months? Of 10 drugs that go to clinical trial, actually 90% of them will fail. Can we bring that to something else? Can we bring that to 50%? Can we bring that to 20%? And make research go much faster and obviously also save lives.